Today I would like to talk about Ficus Retusa. Another name it goes by is Tiger Bark Ficus. I brought this sample now to show everybody. This tree, trunk-wise, is about 2 inches thick. It's starting to break leaf. One thing you need to know about the tree is that it's an imported tree. It comes out of China. And when they ship these trees over here to the States, they pretty much pluck all the foliage off the tree, and they also take all the soil off the root ball. And what needs to happen after we get delivery, they need to get potted up, and we sort of have to wait until the leaves come back again. Now this tree was done about 4 months ago, where it was potted into fresh bones life soil, and now we're sort of eagerly waiting for the leaves to come back. And as you can see by looking at the tree, well, some of the leaves came back in most of the areas, but we still have some areas where we're not absolutely sure whether or not they're going to come back at all, and we just might have to cut some of these sections out. One of the good things about this tree is it's just a type of tree that just so eagerly just buds out from every place. As long as the tree is healthy and happy with its environment, you should begin to see new shoots emerging from almost every point of the tree. So if a limb should happen to die, and that's really where I'm going, is that I'm not going to worry too much about it, because we can simply regrow it by the new shoots that are coming or sprouting right behind it. I like to point out that this tree is known pretty much as an informal upright. It has a bit of a slant style to it, going to the right as the top comes up. But it has some exposed roots that I thought were really interesting. And if you can notice how some of these roots look almost as though they're embedded into the trunk, or actually they look as though they're part of the trunk at this time. So when it came time to potting the tree, I left some of these exposed like this so that you can actually see more of it. I don't think that's a bad point at all in a tree, is to be able to see those old trees, old roots. Old trees in nature, you generally have exposed roots, for they've been there for such a long time, and the rain has beaten the soil away, and the roots have increased in size. What I'd like to show you is the other side. If I can spin the tree slowly around, and as we get there, you can see that it also has some roots over on this side as well. I had initially chosen the other side to be the front. However, this is not a bad view neither. Very dramatic. And if you look from this angle here, the trunk actually moves away from the viewer from this angle, and then the tree gradually comes forward again, and it's a good sign of strength in the presentation of the tree. And I also wanted to point out the soil that I have the tree growing in. It's in a red 1/4 inch lava track soil. It's mixed with some organic pine bark medium. When these trees are imported, they come through the container without any soil on the root ball at all, and what we need to do is to get these trees up and going as quickly as possible. So I chose a good mix, a good solid mix of the lava track and the fir bark, and if you pan across the soil mix, you'll actually see these little balls of Osmocote, which is a bonsai fertilizer. In this case, it's a slow release fertilizer which breaks down into the soil gradually and fertilizes the trees, so that we don't need to feed the trees on a regular basis. It automatically does it for us. This soil will be kept moist like you see it now. It looks a little bit on the dark side, but it'll be kept moist until we feel that the tree is rooted well within the container. And in the meantime, we just keep them happy, we keep them nice and warm, we keep them about 75 degrees, keep them well watered, allow the fertilizer to do the job, and in return we just look for good, green, healthy foliage. The camera's better positioned. I wanted you to see how the new shoots merge around the branch that has failed. So I was never highly concerned about branches that died, although I don't like it because we do lose time in the process. But as they ship these plants, a lot of these branches fail because of the pressure of other plants laying on top of them and the lack of light, and I think a lot of it has to do with the duration of time they may spend in a container while in shipment. But what's nice about the Ficus Retusa is that it's a very hardy, resilient tree, and it does bud back very, very eagerly once it gets going again. So what I would do is simply allow these branches to grow back out again, and sometimes I'll even use the dead branch itself to fasten a new branch to in order to direct it in the right position. But in this case I have two branches merging from the same point. Generally I would take the strongest one so I wouldn't have to wait so long for it to recover. Now in some cases you don't get a bud instantly behind a branch, but again, it's nothing to really worry too much about because you generally will eventually, maybe not that exact season, but the season to follow. Now once this branch begins to grow out, you're not going to want to see the dead branch any longer. You can simply cut it back to minimize the look that it has and try to make it disappear as best possible until the new branch begins to take over. Here is a branch just below it where it partially came back, but the end of it died probably 50% off. And in this case, the same thing is, I'm going to apply the same rules as wait for a new shoot to sort of take over, and I'll train this one from that point forward. Now looking forward with the tree, we still love the way the tree looks, we love the shape of it. On the downside, right now, while we're waiting for all this tree to shape back up again, we still have these dead limbs on the tree, and I feel as though we can take some of these or cut some of these back now so that we don't see so much of them. So what I wanted to point out is that this one here apparently has died off. It's been in this, looking this way for a matter of months now, and you can simply just take your hand and break some of this off, and you'll probably notice how brittle they are. They actually make a snap as you break them off, and any of this dry wood is not coming back again, so you can simply just take it back, and actually it'll just make our tree just look a little bit better. Where you would want to stop is at the point where the wood begins to transition into green living tissue again. You definitely would want to stop at that point. Sometimes when it gets difficult to break off with my fingers, I'll take a pair of concave cutters and I'll just take little nips away from the tree and stop when I begin to see the green tissue around the outside of the wood. At this point I would stop on this branch. So now you can see, now that the camera is focused in, you can see the green tissue here around the bottom. And actually, ficus actually produce a latex as they're cut, and you can just see the fine oozing of that latex from the wound site now that it's been made. So this is a time you'd want to stop. You do have the potential of the tree budding out a little bit closer to the end. However, in my case, I wouldn't really care so much, but if I took this off because I have a nice branch coming out from just below it. However, if you'd like to see how far back they would produce buds, you can simply leave it. It would just simply die back into the weakest point and then stop there. In the back of the tree there's another branch. As you can see, it started to regrow with new foliage, new growth, but the very end of it has decided to fail, to stop growing. And like we did with the previous branch, I'm just going to snap these off, and if they break willingly, they're not going to come back again. So I'm just going to take my fingers, just keep snapping it until it gets very difficult. Right there, I think I'll stop at the moment. There's a little branch over here. Break that one off as well. I sort of like this branch. Broke off into a natural little gin. I think I'll just leave it. I think what I'll do is I'll get a little piece of wire and I'll attach it and pull this one down. Trying to keep my coils uniformly placed. Coming up to the branch now, I want a wire. Just want to weave this wire in between all the leaves and small little branchlets. As you begin to get to the end of the branch, it's going to be a little more difficult to hold on to. At that point, you might want to stop. I'm just going to make a little loop at the end here. And now what I'm able to do, not that the wire's attached, I'm able to bend it down. What I want to do is spin it now so that you get a chance to see what it looks like from the front. Here's another aspect of the tree I'd like to point out. A lot of people who do bonsai are under this impression that you need to prune the tree in order to create girth and bulk to the trunk. But to the contrary, people who grow bonsai don't do that. So what I wanted to point out, that just below the top that the tree had, you'll see a cut mark where the growers of this tree actually cut the tree back and allowed a new top to form, which in this case died, so we're creating a new one. And also something else to the fact that this top, you can see, is very bluntly been cut back, is beginning to heal over. And if I can point out the fact that the cambium, which is the living tissue on the outside of a tree, is beginning to roll over the cut mark. And I want you to see something else, that the cambium's rolling over quite quickly at the top of it, and at the bottom of the cut mark you'll see that it really hasn't even started yet. So that really tells you one thing, that they heal faster from the top versus the bottom. Now it's time to address the top. It's pretty much dead. Snap these big pieces off. This wood is about the size of the thickness of a pencil right now, and it's dead wood, so it's pretty difficult to cut back with a pair of branch cutters. Looking beyond the cut, you see now the new shoots that are emerging from behind the dead wood. We'll simply wire one of these up to create a new top, which would be placed just about in the same position as the old one was in here. Okay. We might wait a little bit longer till these shoots firm up a little bit. They're a little tender, and we have a little more time that we can take before we actually wire these in place. And what we'll do is to allow the top to grow out, and when it gets on its way, we'll simply cut the top of the shoot off, and that in turn should produce some side branches for us in order to create the perfect top for this tree once again. We should be able to see that in probably in 6 months, that you wouldn't know that this tree was ever damaged in any way. It should be just like it was initially.